More news on the go for you now. Suspended Judge Tintswalo Makhubele is today expected to respond to testimony as the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. She's facing a misconduct probe over allegations she unduly held the dual positions of a judge and chair of an interim board of a state-owned entity and allegedly aided state capture at Prasa. Watching those developments is Canny Maphanga, who's live to us now from Rosebank. And Canny, part of the charge, if you like, here is that, she was acting in breach of the separation of powers principle. Perhaps let's begin with what came out yesterday and what we're expecting the suspended judge to say in response to that.
Well, good morning to you, Ayanda, and to the viewers at home. What you can expect from the suspended judge is that her counsel will present their reply to the evidence leaders as well as hashtag Unite Behind, the complainants' submissions on the final closing arguments in the Judicial Conduct Tribunal that is tasked with investigating or putting together this fact-finding mission on these very serious, allegations that the suspended judge is facing. Now, most of what we heard yesterday points towards both parties, that is the evidence leaders as well as hashtag Unite Behind, calling for the most serious sanction against the suspended Judge Tintswalo Nana Makhubele. That is the sanction of gross misconduct, meaning that if the final report that is handed over to the JC would lead to such a finding, then we are in the realm of the removal of a judge, that is the impeachment of a judge. Then you would see a process where she could lose her title and all those benefits that come with it should the JC make such a finding and refer that to the NA for a vote. Then you'll see a similar process as to what happened to impeach judges Mutata and Dr. Sope. So we're seeing those arguments. They are calling for a serious sanction, looking at or taking into consideration rather the actual charge, which is occupying dual positions, as well as looking at the conduct of the suspended judge when she was a chairperson of that interim board, the various allegations that have been made against her when she occupied that office, the alleged keen interest into settling the matter between a corruption-accused company and Prasa, a number of the challenges that were experienced there, the alleged engagements with the opposing lawyers for CIA that was in litigation with the Prasa company, and how that didn't benefit Prasa and how that conduct could affect the credibility as a whole, impartiality and independence of the judiciary. Because if an average litigant were to come before the suspended judge and try to litigate in the matter in light of all the allegations that we have heard here in the Judicial Conduct Tribunal, what would that do to the credibility, the impartiality and the independence of South Africa's judiciary? So you have those two parties calling quite strictly for the removal of the suspended judge, stating that, or telling the tribunal rather, to draw the inference that she may not be fit to hold office.
Yeah, and I wonder if we've been here before, Canny. In other words, have we had situations where judges have occupied these two positions in this way? Because I imagine the answer to that question will in some ways shed light on how the tribunal decides.
Well, I think each circumstance is different, Ayanda, especially with this case. Remember, she was interviewed in October 2017 and then was approached for this appointment to the board. And then, of course, once you're successful in those JC interviews, they give you that brief period to wind up your personal affairs. And her argument before this tribunal was that it was not a foregone conclusion that she would be appointed following the recommendation by the JSC, but the example that she used to support this claim was that of the previous Chief Justice interviews, where we saw the recommendation of DCJ Meyer, for the position of Chief Justice, and we did see that the President went another way when making that appointment. However, the powers there when dealing with the appointment of a Chief Justice versus what you've seen the JC advise the President of with the High Court division are extremely different powers, and one would expect that the suspended judge would understand those powers as stated in Section 174 of the Constitution. But we've never really had a scenario like this where there is a gap, I guess, in employment, if you could call call it that way, and a judge or a judge that is about to become a judge come the 1st of January 2018 takes up another position in the executive and then is appointed as a judge, of course that is a conflict of interest, and it is on this basis that the evidence leaders are saying that once she had gotten that recommendation by the JSC, she should never have entertained the position in the executive because of the obvious glaring conflict of interest where you have to be in a judiciary that is independent, and of course this is a position that is in the executive where you account to the Minister of Transport if you essentially are the chairperson of that interim board. So those are some of the arguments that they have advanced. They've poked a number of holes in the defenses that Judge Makhubele has presented before the tribunal, even going as far to claim that she was an unsatisfactory witness in this probe on the misconduct allegations against her. But later, when this tribunal starts at about 10 a.m., we'll then hear from the counsel of the suspended judge as to what their closing arguments are with reference to her defenses as she denies any wrongdoing in this particular instance where you saw a judge. I think this is the first instance where we're seeing a matter like this, because the conflict of interest is glaring here. You see a judge who was occupying a position of chairperson of an interim board, awaiting that final appointment, and then of course you see the 1st of January come up and she's unable to take that oath because she's still occupied in this position and only takes it later that following year after she resigns from that position of the chairperson. So it's quite an interesting question that has to be answered here by the panel when they make that report. And of course, lastly, before I just quickly wrap to you, and the central question about when does one become a judge was something that was probed yesterday. We did see Unite Behind submitting that they differ with this opinion that Judge Makhubele has presented before the tribunal that just because she hadn't taken an oath that she wasn't a judge. They state that this is not a normal employment contract. Judges are appointed in terms of the Constitution, and once that minute had been signed by the former President Jacob Zuma stating that she would be assuming office on the 1st of January 2018, that meant that she became a judge on the 1st of January 2018, and the oath was simply an exercise in order for you to perform those judicial functions. But she was a judge by the 1st of January 2018, according to the complainant #Unite Behind.
Sure. It's a fascinating matter before the tribunal. Can't wait to see what they decide and, more importantly, why. Canny Maphanga, live to us there from Rosebank in Johannesburg. Thanks very much indeed.